Finally, French President Emmanuel Macron is set to embark on a major tour across Africa. But this isn't your run-of-the-mill state visit. The world leader is aiming to spur new dynamics in a continent that still remembers French colonial rule. French-African relations are far from strong. Many nations have turned their back on the West off the back of tensions caused by French colonial rule. But before we tell you more about his visit to the 4 African nations, let's first look at why his trip is so significant. The historical influence of France in Africa cannot be understated. At one point, French colonial rule stretched across 20 separate African countries. The European nation granted independence to those nations across the 50s, 60s and 70s. This due to different factors, including a weak post-World War II economy, colonial conflict and nationalist movements. The door has been opened for other players like Russia and China to build economic partnerships with African nations. China, notably through the Belt and Road Initiative, which has seen major investments into African development, while Russia has seen high levels of defence cooperation, highlighted recently with the announcement that $4 billion of military and defence deals have been agreed with dozens of African states. Macron has tried in the past to separate himself from previous French leaders, acknowledging what he called the crimes of European colonialism.
I belong to a generation of French people for whom the crimes of European colonization are indisputable and are part of our history. I recognize myself in the voices of Albert Landres and André Gide, who denounced thousands of deaths on the Congo's railroad, and I do not forget that these voices were a minority in France and in Europe at the time.
Macron made series of promises that include returning looted heritage items, declassifying archives and strengthening academic partnerships. But these gave way to statements many considered as insulting to Africa. And Macron is aiming to once again rebuild ties with a group of nations. Let's take a look at where Macron will be visiting. The tour begins in Mauritius today, where the French president will stay until the 21st of November. Macron is aiming to promote the partnership with neighbouring French islands, Mayotte and Réunion. He will then head to Johannesburg for the G20 summit on the 22nd and 23rd. Macron has been supporting Pretoria, who are dealing with the controversial US boycott. It is also expected that the president will meet with his Algerian counterpart amid rising tensions between the two nations. From the G20 summit, Macron will then head to Gabon, where he's scheduled to meet with President Brice Oligui Nguema. The army general won an election in April after a coup that saw the ousting of French ally Ali Bongo. The final leg of the tour will see Macron head to Angola for the European Union-African Union Summit, in which areas including security, trade and green development are set to be discussed. For Macron, the goal is clear: rebuild relationships with African nations to strengthen cooperation and unlock potential within the continent. But diplomatically, the path is a tricky one. Much of Africa has already turned its back on France. Can Macron's visit spark a reset? History says it will be difficult.
I was a revolutionary. I became a ruler. I claimed to protect my people. I terrorized them instead. I built palaces. I started wars. I lost everything. Some called me a defender of Arab pride. History remembers me as a dictator. Who am